Hi boys and girls, and welcome to your second project lesson of the week. So we're going to look at history again, but today we're going to think about Victorian classrooms and Victorian schools. So yesterday you looked at the Victorian era and learnt the key facts about the Victorian era. Okay, so you looked at maybe poor Victorians and rich Victorians, the Industrial Revolution, inventions, and you wrote some key facts down for me for yesterday. So today we're going to think about more about Victorian schools. And I've got a presentation here that I thought I would read rather than get you to have a look through. And that would help you hear some of the key facts. Okay, so let's have a look at this part. So this is all about Victorian classrooms. And here we've got a drawing of a Victorian classroom. So an artist's impression of what the Victorian classroom looked like. So very different to how we are today. So shall we see what the key facts are about this classroom? So in Victorian schools, there were lots of children in each class. Some classes had 70 to 80 children, so a lot more than we have now. I think in my class is 17 and in Miss Taylor's is 16, so a lot less than back in the olden days or in the Victorian days. Classrooms had bare walls and high ceilings so the children could not look out. And the children sat in long rows and wooden desks. And the teacher had to write on a blackboard with some chalk. So you can see there. So very different to our classroom today. Okay, so the next part is lessons. Okay, so in here you can see there's a picture of a Victorian school with some boys and girls, and the boys and girls had to sit separately in Victorian schools. They had to chant their facts and times tables every day. The most important lessons were religious studies, reading, writing and arithmetic. And these lessons were called the 3 R's. Girls had to learn needlework and housekeeping skills in the afternoon, and the boys learned woodwork and technical drawing. So they even had separate lessons based on their gender, if they were a boy or a girl. Very different to now. Okay, let's have a look at this one. So this one says equipment. You can see there's a picture of some children holding different equipment. So younger children wrote on slate boards using a slate pencil, and older children wrote with an ink pen. Children had to fill their ink pens from the inkwell on their desks. Now, if you go into Miss Taylor's classroom, I think she's got a desk that's got an inkwell hole. Okay, so if you were an older one, so probably if you were year 4, 5 and 6, you got to use an ink pen. Whereas the younger children, like us, the year 1s, reception, year 2 and year 3, had to use slate. Okay. Victorian children used a counting frame called an abacus to help with their arithmetic work. Okay, so that's like there's a square frame and it's got beads that you slide across to help them with their counting. Whereas nowadays, we have lots of different equipment. We have cubes, we have counters, we have bead strings. Okay, so that's equipment. Let's have a look at the next one. Okay, so the next part we're going to look at is teachers. Okay, so most teachers weren't trained very properly in Victorian times. They had to learn how to teach the children in the classroom, so they learned on the job. Teachers were very strict, and children had to do as they're told or they would be punished. Okay, so it's a bit like we are today, teachers, but we're not as strict as these would be. I think these would have severe punishments. I think here you've got a special cap here that some children had to wear if they weren't doing their work very well and had to stand in the corner. I think we looked at a diary, didn't we, in English about a little girl called Daisy who had to wear this cap. Okay, whereas teachers nowadays, we are trained to teach. We don't learn in the classroom. Okay, so that's teachers. Let's have a look at the next part. Okay, so here we go, punishments. Okay, let me find my part. So there were many punishments in Victorian schools. Teachers hit pupils with a cane when they were rude or even when they were lazy. And the children had to wear this cap here again, look, this dunce's cap, if they worked very slowly. Some children had to write lines if they broke the school rules or told a lie. And all punishment was recorded in a punishments book. That's very different to today, isn't it? We don't have these caps that these children used to wear, or we don't hit children anymore. Okay, so it doesn't sound very nice in the Victorian schools, does it? Okay, last one then about the school day. Okay, so the school day started at 9 o'clock in the morning and finished at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Lunchtime lasted for 2 hours and most children went home for lunch. Children played with hoops, skipping ropes and marbles at playtime. So the school day started at 9, which is a bit later than we start, but they finished at 5 o'clock. I think lots of you boys and girls will probably be home having your tea by then at 5 o'clock. And we only have an hour for lunch, not 2. Okay, and we don't go home for lunch. That's not very seen very often nowadays, that we stay in school and have our school dinners or our packed lunch, don't we? Okay, so that is all about schools, the Victorian schools. So your job now is, you've got a little activity, a sorting activity. So you can have some statements and you're going to put them into if they're true or they're false from the things that you've learned from me. Okay, so you can re-watch this video again, have a go at that activity below. So it's statements that you're going to have some true or false. Okay, so you've got to tell me if they're true, if they're real, or false if they're not real. Okay, so that's your job for today, or one of your jobs. So I'd like you to do that now, and then we'll check the answers when you come back. Okay, so shall we check our true and false statements then, based on my video? Okay, so in the true side, you should have teachers hit children with a cane, because they did in them days. Children learned by chanting facts and timetables. The 3 R's were the most important lessons. Children sat at wooden desks, Teachers used blackboards and children sat in rows facing the front. They're all true. And in the false, a hard-working child wore the dunce's cap. That's not right, because it was a slow working. There were fewer than 20 children in each class. Not true. Again, there was 80 to 90 children. Children used computers. No, in the Victorian era, there wasn't any computers invented then. Lunchtime was 1 hour. No, it was 2. And boys learned needlework and housekeeping skills. That is also not true, false. It was the girls that did that, so good job on that. So that was your first job. Okay, your second job is you're going to have a first-hand account. So you can have 2 of them. You're going to have a teacher's account, Mr. Hardiman, and then you're going to have a schoolgirl called Kate Smith. Okay, so I want you to print these off and to have a read, and I'll read them to you now. And then your next job is you're going to have something that looks like this in here. And these are the 2 people that we're going to read about, and some speech bubbles with some different speech in it. Okay, and what your job is, you need to colour in the speech bubble to show what Mr. Hardiman and Kate Smith said. And then can you decide why they said different things about the same incident? So you can have a think about that and maybe tell a grown-up. Okay, so I'm going to read the 2 first-hand accounts. Again, you can print it off and follow along, or you can read it at home. And then I want you to colour in the facts, the ones that they said were in their account. Okay, so you're going to colour in the speech bubbles about the bits that they said. Okay, so let's read Mr. Hardiman, the teacher. I felt very angry today. Kate Smith was writing with her left hand. She was breaking my classroom rules. I asked her to use her right hand. I looked at her work. Her writing was very messy. She hadn't worked hard enough, and she hadn't tried her best. I had to punish her. I tapped her left hand with the cane 3 times. It didn't hurt. Kate didn't cry. I hope she has learnt her lesson. Okay, so that's Mr. Hardiman's account of what happened. Let's read Katie's account. I felt very sad at school today. I was writing with my left hand. Mr. Hardiman shouted at me. He said I should follow the rules and use my right hand. So I did. I rubbed ink all over my paper, and my writing looked very messy. Mr. Hardiman's face went red. He shouted at me. He hit my left hand with a cane 3 times. My hand really hurt. I tried not to cry. I feel scared of Mr. Hardiman now. So that's 2 different accounts of the same incident. Okay, So again, you can rewind my video to keep checking, or you can print it off below and read it. And then I want you to colour in all the parts, all the speech bubbles that Mr. Hardiman said, and all the speech bubbles that Katie said. Okay, so that's your next job. So I want you to go away and do that. You can print that off, have a look, and then come back and check to see if you've coloured in the ones the same as me. Okay. Okay, should we check to see if we've got the same ones? Okay, so for Mr. Hardiman, I've coloured in that it didn't hurt bubble, because he said that it didn't hurt her. That she hadn't tried her best, because he says that, let me have a look, she hadn't worked hard enough and tried her best. Also, I had said to use her right hand, because she was writing with the left. And then this last one, I had to punish her. So they're the things that he said in his first hand account. And then Katie, I've coloured in, I rubbed ink all over my paper. I tried not to cry. I can't use my right hand. And my hand really hurts, because they're the things that she said. Okay, so that is your history lesson for today, your project lesson. So it was just a sorting out activity based on the presentation, and then seeing if you can remember what they said from their speech on their first hand accounts. So that's your project lesson for the week.